Disclaimer, this is not a blind commentary. I've already seen the show at least 1,000,000,000 times. Believe me, I've checked. This is intended to be a sort of commentary or review of the show while I'm watching it. For copyright reasons, I'm not going to be showing the show on screen like usual reaction videos do. This is good for 2 reasons. One, if you want to hear my commentary alongside your viewing of the show to keep track of where I'm at in the episode, you can. Just play your episode when the countdown timer is up. And 2, I can give my thoughts on the show much faster this way without much editing. So without further ado, let's start the episode. Hello everyone. It's been quite a while since my last reaction to Avatar. A lot of reasons for that. Mainly I just was not feeling up to it. Like I didn't have like a drive to do it. But at least for this episode right now, I'm back, and today we have the King of Omashu. This episode is interesting because while I don't hate it, I really, really don't hate it in any way. I don't love it either, and a lot of that has to do with just the animation quality, the basic tone of the episode. It's not something that I hate, again, but there's something very Nickelodeon about this episode that I don't really like that much. I've seen the show so many times. I actually don't know how many times I've seen this show. It's that many times. I've at least seen it more than 50, 60 times easily. I just don't know how many times, but every single time I watch this show, this episode it doesn't, like, I just don't like it that much. And now, I'm gonna explain as it's going on. So here we got Omashu, and this is I do really like the design of this city. I like the introduction of this city into the Avatar world. Like, that stuff is fine. There's nothing really wrong with, like, the premise of this episode. There really isn't. It's just, it feels too heavy on the comedy, and the animation quality feels like something that was not really done by an overseas animation studio, like those really talented Korean studios that usually are doing the show. And I know that they are working on the show. Like, this is funny, but like this part where Aang's yelling at the Earth Kingdom soldier. But I don't know, it's just too late for me. And, alright, but yeah, basically what I was saying is, like, I know this is animated by DR Movie, which is one of the many animation studios that worked on the show. But something feels really rounded about the drawings. Everything looks very Nickelodeon to me. Now, I've said this before on a reaction sort of review type thing. Yeah, I guess it was more of a review. Excuse me. I had a dumb tongue twister moment there. But yeah, me and a couple other of my friends, we did a review of this episode, and it was when I was adminning the Avatar One Facebook page on Facebook. And I basically said the same things that I'm saying right now. Everything just looks very Nickelodeon. Everything looks very... I've heard this before. I think I've heard this from somebody, Elliot Nunn, Alpha Alpaca Pack. I think he said something like this about this episode that I couldn't agree more with. I don't remember his entire opinion on this episode, but like this, just to catch up where I'm at on the episode. Like, I really like this mail system that Omashu has. I really, really like the idea and the concept of it, and the execution. I think it's done well. But Elliot Nunn, Alpha Alpaca Pack, he said something like, "This is an episode of Avatar where it feels like if Avatar wasn't the masterpiece that it really was, this is what every episode kind of would probably feel like, tonally and just visually and everything like that." Now and I agree with that. There's just something about that just makes so much sense to me. I always felt like the animation was very simplistic. It's not bad animation, I will say that. Though there are a couple of times where I do feel like the drawings are a bit off, and now I'll point them out when they come up. But actually, I'd say about like 40 seconds ago there was actually an unfinished painting, but it's only there for a couple seconds. It's not a big deal. But I'll get to the little animation the animation points that I want to get to when they come up. But this joke is really funny. That wasn't actually the pilot episode of Avatar. That not the very first episode, which you would usually call the pilot, but the unaired pilot, where they like had a freeze frame of some crazy action. Now this, like I'm saying that like the self-contained story of this episode is paced really well. It's well written. It's fun. And it has a lot of character. And it's very Aang-centered. And maybe for a kid, nobody would understand that Boomy is, like, the king or whatever. But, like, I hope that what I'm saying doesn't seem like it's taking a shit on the show. Because I love this show. But this episode is just really simple. It's very simple. It doesn't feel much like an epic fantasy type thing. It feels so much more like a cartoon. And I think that's like the most basic thing I could say about it. It doesn't feel like a series that could be compared to Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or anything like that in this episode. If in this episode it feels like a Nickelodeon cartoon. That is to say, for besides the fight that comes up with Aang versus King Boomy, which I actually think is a pretty great fight choreography wise, and even some of the animation is really solid. I do like the idea of like King Boomy's character also, and this is something I want to talk about. But like, this is another one of my just pet peeves about this episode, is that I just don't like Boomy. I don't think that he's not a poorly written character by any means. He serves his purpose. He's not particularly deep as a character, and he doesn't have to be, but he's not. I understand why people like him. Like, he has likable traits, and he's goofy, and he's funny, or whatever. And they're very self-aware of his comedy being very corny. But, I don't know, it's just... He's another thing that I have to say, like, how about a couple minutes ago I was just talking about how I think this episode is tonally really light compared to even some of the funnier episodes later in the series, which I think the comedy is way better in those episodes anyway, like Nightmares and Daydreams and stuff. But yeah, the Boomy just feels in line with that childish tone, and it's funny because like the more I think about it, it's not a problem because that's what the episode is going for. You got to judge these episodes episodically, as well as with the whole picture. But episodically, it's where it really shines because I mean it's an episodic show. So like it's totally consistent, and it has a narrative with a beginning, middle, and end, and it has characters with personality, and they're fun, and there's stakes to it. And there's an interesting world. I just don't... There's something about it that just... It's not Avatar standard. It's not bad by any means. It's just not Avatar good, I think. Now that was a lot that I said. That was basically 9.5 minutes of me just rambling on why this episode is not entirely for me. But I mean, I do like this joke right here with Boomy talking about the new chamber. That's really funny. And yeah, like while this episode is really light, it doesn't treat like kids like an imbecile. Like it's not super 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 smart and subtle, but it works. It's just it doesn't work for me personally. It's a subjective thing. It's not really an objective thing. Though you could definitely say some objectively flawed things about the episode, I think, like the animation and stuff. Like right here, like the animation, it's not bad. It's just everybody looks really circular, and they kind of look balloony. Like that sounds so bad, cause this show is really good with that animation. Now that looked good with Momo and the pipe. That was good animation. But I don't know. This it's it's not the standard that I hold Avatar to. And it's funny because I still, even with an episode like this, I still consider the whole of Avatar as a masterpiece. I really do. You you really could just nitpick tiny little things like, oh, well, that doesn't make sense entirely because this episode this happened. But like, I still, while that is the case with like every fucking thing ever, it's it's not enough to tear down something for not being a master. Like this is a masterpiece to me. The show is still a masterpiece, even regardless of this episode and maybe some of its shortcomings. But like, I mean, I guess that says something about the show as a whole. I mean, it's just so goddamn good that an episode like this can't do anything to it. It's really it's like shooting a tank with a pistol. It's not going to do anything. Like technically something's being done, and technically this is an episode that's weaker by comparison, but it's not bad enough to leave a mark. Um, yeah, I like this concept, the whole Genomite thing, and this is good for Aang's character. Like he see the whole show is about like him being forced into these situations where he has to make a tough decision, and he has to think differently than he normally would. And in that way, I guess this episode is a really good encapsulation of that. Though I think most of the episodes are. But like, yeah, it's like I like these tests. But like, okay, so here's a moment for me where I was talking about earlier that the animation's a little like kind of odd. Here it comes. Now, Aang jumping on these rocks, I think they're stalactites or stalagmites, whichever one. Yeah, like that's fine. That looks okay. He's going up into the waterfall. That looks fine, but it's this part coming up. Don't worry, it's not the funny part right here. It looks like he's about to get speared by a fucking rock. That's funny. It's hilarious. And it's not this him jumping. It's right. It's not even this moment. It's actually okay. He's jumping down. That looked okay. Him spinning around. It's right here. This moment where he picks up this rock and he throws it. There's just something so off in my head, like logically, about this. Like, okay, he rips it off. He throws it like, Jesus Christ, dude. He's 12 years old and he threw this giant rock really, really, really friggin' hard. Hard enough to slam into that wall and create cracks in the wall. And I don't know, just the animation just looks so weird. Like Like, he, like, rotates and his, like, arms are in, like, these weird positions, and he, like, throws it. And here's another thing that I have not really been... I've never mentioned, but I have to say this. See, okay, so Brian Konietzko, the co-creator of Avatar, and the art director. So he's basically the reason why things are the way they are, visually. He very clearly has taken inspiration from Fully Cooley, FLCO, like that anime series. It's like a mini anime series thing. It's like an OVA type deal, where like the animation is really crazy and expressive. It's very clear that in this episode he's taking inspiration from that. I could see it. I could see it in the drawings, and I've seen some of Fully Cooley, so I can. It makes sense. I just don't think it works with the rest of the show. There's a lot of episodes in the show where they all look pretty good on their own, but they're very different styles. This episode stands out a lot to me because of that. Now, this is a good fight, I think. I also like this idea that like Aang chooses Boomy instead. Like he thinks he has a good beat on things, and then he just gets screwed over. Like, I love that. That's awesome writing. It's basic, for a Nickelodeon show, but it's still awesome. I like this part. It's so awesome. Yeah, that's how I crack my back every single day after work, because I work at a warehouse and it's a nightmare on my back. Yeah, this is like the first, and I also have to say, this is like the first time yeah, this is the first time we see earthbending. That's something I haven't mentioned in this this review commentary type deal. This is the first time we see earthbending, and I think that's a good way of showing it. We show this really, really powerful earthbender. That's a great idea to show like this new ability that we haven't seen in the show. We've seen it in the intro, but we haven't seen it in the show. I think that's great. Yeah, I like this fight. Now, they like stop to talk every once in a while, and I don't think that's a problem, but I still think that the actual fighting choreography, whenever it's happening, is really good. I like that smoke animation. It was pretty good. The fog particle effects. I like that, where he's just like stepping and he has his like fists up to his ribs. That's a really cool technique. This part's all, the sound design right here is incredible. When this air blast hits the wall, that sounds so good with a headset on. I encourage anybody listening to this, after I just said that, listen to that air blast that Aang throws at that wall, and tell me it does not sound awesome. Like that part right there with those rocks, where it like slaps Aang down, and like that little low angle shot of like Boomy punching the ground, that looks incredible. It looks really good. It's like the animation for the fighting in this episode looks stunning, but like the rest of it's kind of like really rounded and kind of Nickelodeon-ish or Nickelodeon-esque. I even said in my, I like that part. But I even said in my review for the Avatar 1 page that like it kind of looks Nick Jr.-y, and that's like it sounds really insulting, but I don't mean it that way. I'm just being honest. I love this show, but I gotta be truthful. This part always confused me, how like he rips that thing out of the wall, but like it cuts to the other shot and it's like the thing is still there, like that balcony. But then like at another angle you could see that it's like there's still a hole in the wall. And I was like, oh crap, alright. Well, that makes sense. I love how Aang goes through that smoke cloud and there's like a little, there's like the smoke, like, opens up. It's cool. I love how he just goes through the floor like that. It's so awesome. I like that end pose. This is funny. I love when Sokka says Rocky. I think it's hilarious. Yeah, like, and like right here, you could actually see an example of this. If you look at those characters in the background, Sokka and Katara, if you look at their actual profile, it looks really bad. Like, there's something just so off model about this episode. For the most part, I mean. When its animation gets going, it's pretty good, but I don't know, it's just, to me, it's no excuse. It shouldn't look like this. Even if it's trying to emulate Fully Cooley, I don't know. I just don't think it works that much. Yeah, like, it's a very simplistic plot, and it doesn't treat the audience like an idiot, like the audience being kids, but it's not super duper great. It's not the most amazing thing ever. Like this part right here. Here's an example of what I'm trying to say. The light tone. Aang sees Boomy, who he hasn't seen in a while, and he thought he was dead. So he tears up, but like the rest of the show, I feel like would handle that in a really touching, dramatic way. But this episode's just kind of like, Boomy, you're a mad genius, and he only tears up a little bit and gives him a hug. Like, it's not bad. It's just really, really light. Even for like the first couple episodes of the show, it's really light. And I know that the show gets more mature as it goes on. I get it, but I feel like it doesn't hold up to the rest of the show, is what I'm trying to say. This is actually the first time I hear Ozai's name, which is interesting. Boomy just said, defeat Fire Lord Ozai, which is interesting, because he's another world leader. He's talking about assassinating another world leader, even though he's not the Earth King. Still. A political leader, I should say. That's a good drawing of Boomy. That was really good. This is classic Avatar: The Last Airbender, though, where the episode ends off in a goofy way. That I don't have a problem with. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this is the Cabbage Merchant's first episode. Of course, I was too busy complaining about animation stuff. I didn't even notice that. So yeah, that was Avatar: The Last Airbender, Season 1, Episode 5, The King of Omashu. It's been a while since I've been on here. If I'm feeling up for it, and if you are too, I definitely, well, I shouldn't say definitely. I'll think about doing some more episodes, maybe in a row. Actually, it's about 8 o'clock at night, but, you know, I'll try doing it. I got a new mic too, so it sounds a lot better, I'm sure. So yeah, that was the episode. Not my favorite. I got some problems with it. In a way, personal problems, but it's not bad. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.